Okay, welcome back. Once again, this is Mike Arredondo, principal of Gonzales High School at What's Happening at Gonzales High School, our first podcast of the year. Our next teacher to talk about their new program this year is Ms. Haley Brown, who is our history and teacher of the new photography class that we're offering this fall. Ms. Brown, can you tell us about the program?
Yeah, so I was really excited to be able to teach the class this year. Really, what the program is, it's an avenue for students to not only explore their creativity through a visual medium, but also to kind of learn more about the business side, the career aspects of photography, which we kind of get into in the second semester. So they'll learn things like building a portfolio, building a website, in addition to sort of the more technical aspects of using a camera. So settings, different lighting conditions, white balance, how to use Photoshop and Lightroom for basic editing processing, all kinds of things like that. The goal really is to get them hands-on. So one of the other things that I'm doing is I go to sporting events to take pictures sometimes and other school events. And so I'm bringing some kids along with me to kind of get kids used to being out in the field and kind of get that hands-on experience. Because photography really is one of those things where the more you actually do it, the better you're going to learn. It's one thing to sit in a classroom and learn how to read a textbook and pick up terms that way, but you don't really actually internalize it till you go out and start doing it. And I've only done it once this semester in this short amount of time that we've had, but immediately the students were super intrigued by that and wanted to do it again. So I'm really excited for what that brings in the future.
Well, that's exciting. So tell me about these cameras. What kind of cameras are there, and where are we getting them from?
So we're ordering the cameras from Adorama.com, and the first set of cameras are introductory level cameras. So we're looking at Canon Rebel X7s with some 18 to 35 millimeter lens kits, as well as a few 75 to 300 millimeter lenses. These are standard lenses. They're not the more high-end things that Canon offers, simply because this is an introductory course and we don't necessarily want to overwhelm them. However, we are getting two cameras that are called Canon EOS 90Ds, and these are what are called mid-range cameras. And so these cameras kind of like toe the line between amateur and professional camera, and they're a really great option for people who are kind of beyond the limitations of a beginning camera like the Rebel, but maybe aren't necessarily ready for the intricacies of a professional level camera like the one that I shoot with, which is a 1DX Mark II. We're also getting, in addition to that, two 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 lenses. These have image stabilization, and those lenses are from Sigma that'll work with the Canons. And they're just all around lenses. Every photographer, whether they shoot landscape, portrait, or sports photography, is gonna have this lens in their kit. So it is a workhorse lens. It's all around. There's a lot of functionality to it. And kids like shooting sporting events. They get to watch the game, but also they get to practice their photography, right? So it's a really great way to show them what a professional level setup might look like so they can get an idea and they can move beyond kind of the innate limitations that come with kind of topping out or hitting the ceiling of an entry-level camera like the Rebel X7. So it's going to leave them wanting more and hopefully pique their interest so that in the future we can create a more advanced photography course that maybe can actually get some use out of professional level cameras and have kids focus on portfolios. But the goal right now is primarily just development, right?
Awesome. So you mentioned three different types of programs. One, sports photography, landscape, and portrait. Are students going to be able to learn all three of those aspects of photography?
Yeah, so I'm breaking this down into sections. Sports photography is kind of passive in the sense that there's no dedicated unit to it. It's more something that kids are going to be using to practice things like shutter speed and ISO and exposure and aperture, because the conditions for sports are changing constantly, particularly if you start shooting during the day, but then it starts getting dark outside and you need to adjust for the lighting. So it really kind of like puts kids on their toes and it kind of puts their feet to the fire a little bit and makes them adjust. Now I'm there to help guide them initially, but eventually like I kind of You figure out the settings. You try to figure what this is, because that's really the way you're going to learn. There's going to be a lot of failure, and I tell the kids that ahead of time, right? But that failure is what's going to drive them, because they're going to go, oh, I didn't set this setting right. Oh, I didn't focus correctly. I didn't do this. And then they're going to kind of learn to innately make those adjustments. As far as portrait and landscape photography are concerned, yes, there are going to be dedicated units to those, or subunits. Portraiture is going to be talked about in the second semester. Things like studio portraiture, outdoor portraiture, really kind of emphasize a lot of the rules of composition. So that's going to be very heavily dedicated second semester, because it's also going to tie in with some of the aspects about business. Because the reality is that unless you're selling your work in a gallery, like landscape photography or something along those lines, or you're working for an agency, you're making your money by doing portraits. That's really one of the big ways most photographers make their money. So it's sort of a natural tie-in with the more technical education side of the photography course. And landscape photography, going to try to do it in the wintertime, closer to November and December, and even into January, simply because the fall, winter, and early spring are the best times of the year to take landscape photographs. The lighting is good. The air quality is usually a lot clearer. In summer, on the other hand, produces a lot of harsh light. So unless students are really going to be really willing to wake up at like really early in the morning to see the sunrise, or stay up really late in an awkward location to watch the sunset, the lighting might not necessarily be as good. But in those other seasons that I mentioned, you kind of have really good lighting that can kind of exist all day, right? So want kids to kind of experience every genre, simply because being multifaceted is what's going to help you grow as an artist. I myself do a lot of sports photography, landscape, and wildlife photography. I'm not so good with portraits, but there are people who are way better with portraits, but probably aren't the best with landscape photography. It's a different skill set, and the goal is to kind of give them an understanding of all these different genres, so they can figure out what works for them and what their interests are. And then my job is to kind of sit back and go, what can I do to help you, explore your creativity in that genre of photography?
Excellent. So this is really an exciting time for you. With all this happening. Tell me about your classroom and what you plan to do with that.
So I'm very fortunate because I have an old media room that exists inside my current room. And it has a lot of physical infrastructure that can support an indoor portrait studio. So my goal is, hopefully by the end of this year, so heading into next year, we can have the infrastructure set up to have an indoor portrait studio set up on campus to do things like a media day for athletes, to have senior portraits taken, to have work with CTE programs, to have things like career day photos taken for portfolios or for resumes, things like that. And it would all ideally be student driven, whether that is in second semester, or if I'm fortunate enough to get an advanced photography class, whether those students are going to be the one running it. But we've ordered the lighting. We have a lot of the existing infrastructure set up. So I'm really, really excited about that, because I think it's a really awesome avenue that even I didn't have when I was in school. And, I went to a school that had way more money than it probably needed. And even we didn't have something like that. So very fortunate to have the backing of the district and the school and getting something like that set up. And I know that when I've talked to the kids about it, they're also super excited about this. But we really just can't wait. That whole room is kind of undergoing a huge change, and really excited for this. There's going to be a lot of growth for the visual and performing arts in that area. And I really am I can't understate or overstate how excited I am. It's
Well, it shows
Yeah.
your enthusiasm. And thank you for taking the time to come and share this
Yeah, no
information with us.
problem.
I know you're going to have some pictures that we're going to be on this podcast of your students taking photos and sharing them with us. Thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right.